Hello, in this lesson we are going to talk about CSS box sizing property and about its two possible values, content box and border box. I created this little widget here in order to visualize the concept. So we have two boxes of size 300 by 300. The first box has its box sizing property set to content box, and the second box has its box sizing property set to border box. They both have dimensions 300 by 300, and their margin, border, and padding are set to 0. As you can see, in this situation, there are no difference. There is no difference between content box and border box. When we change the dimensions, there is actually no difference between them. When we set margins, again, there is no difference. But the difference, you will see the difference when we set border and padding. Let's set border to, let's say, 5 pixels or 10 pixels. And now we have the difference between content box and border box. The difference is 20 pixels. 20 pixels is the sum of left border and right border. So 10 pixels plus 10 pixels, and we have this difference. Let's add padding. Let's add 20 pixels of padding. Now the difference is more noticeable as 60 pixels. Again, this is just the sum of these 10 plus 20 times 2. So 30 times 2, 60, and here is this difference, 60 pixels. So in order to understand how a certain concept actually works, the best way is to try and implement it yourself. And this is exactly what I did here. I took the task of building this widget and I broke it into 16 discrete steps. So we begin with a simple container. Let's see how we create it. We create it with a div, and we specify the class attribute. We set equal to preview, and we specify 3 CSS properties: width, height, and background color. Then we need to center this div vertically and horizontally. And how do we do it? We do it with the display flags property and justify content and align items. Justify content allows us to put it to center it across. Excuse me. Justify content property allows us to center our container across the x-axis horizontally, and align items property allows to center the container along the y-axis or vertically. This is the easiest way to center something in modern CSS. And since we're using body as our flex container, we also need to set its margin to 0, and we set its height to 100% of the viewport. The next step is we create two boxes, content box and border box. And let's see how we do it. We create two divs. Inside the preview div, we create two other divs, content box and border box. And we specify CSS properties. In the style section, we specify color and we set box sizing. This box sizing here, we don't actually need to specify it explicitly because it is the default value for this element. But I specified it anyway in order to make it explicit. Okay, the next step. We set the width and height of our boxes, and we change the direction from vertical to horizontal. So we add this new class here, box. This is a common class shared by these two boxes. We specify width, height, and set display. When we just specify display flex, it changes the direction of elements. By default, they have a display block, and they go from top to bottom, but when we set display flex, they go from left to right. Then we adjust font properties in order to make it in order to make the labels more pronounced. So how do we do it? We set these three properties: font family, font size, and font weight. Okay. The next step, we add some user input here, so that user can type some values here, like width, height, and so on. In order to achieve this effect, we need a wrapper div. So we create a div, and we put this element that we had before, the preview element, we put it inside this wrapper div, and we add two other blocks here for the first row and for the second row. The first row contains two inputs for width and height, and the second row contains three inputs for margin, border, and padding. And we specify the type of inputs. We set it to number. Then we set default values to these inputs. Width 300 pixels, height 300 pixels, margin, border, and padding, we set them to 0. We achieve this result with the value attribute. Very simple. The next step, we need to specify some other attributes. Let me show you the problem that we have in the previous step when we just set the default values. We for example can go below 0, like we can have negative margin. We don't really want this effect, and the increment for our width and height is 1 pixel. It would be better to have an increment of 5 pixels. And in order to achieve this effect, so you see now we cannot go below 0, and increments are 5 pixels. In order to achieve this effect, we specify these two attributes, min and step. Min stands for minimum width 300 pixels, and here minimum width is 0 pixels, and step 5 pixels. Next step, we add some styling to our widget. We set its background color, we add padding, and of course border radius, rounded corners. We achieve this effect by doing these two things. First, we specify the class of the div container, and then we specify these properties here: color, padding, border, and display flex. As I mentioned earlier, when we set display flex, our elements will go from left to right by default. If we want to redefine this flex direction from row to column, we set this property here. And we specify gap. So why do we do it? We want to have this little gap here between. So we basically have 3 rows in our widget: this preview row, then width height row, and then margin, border, padding row. And we add gap between them. Okay, the next thing, we add some styles to our inputs. No, actually, it will be the next step before we start doing things with our input. We need to add styling to our rows. So we specify 2 classes: WH, width height, and MBP, margin, border, padding. And then in the style section we add the following styles: display, flags, align items, justify content, and gap. All these are styles that they were used before. The only interesting thing here is that for the with height WH row, we specify justify content. We set justify content to center, and for MBP, we set justify content to space evenly. So this is center. Its thing is located in the center, and here we space evenly. So we have this free space here between the containers. Okay, the next step, we need to do something with our inputs, because if you see here, we have the default. By default, they are way too long, and the font size is not set properly. It's significantly smaller than the expected font size, and we have these ugly buttons here. We align the text inside items to the right. How do we achieve this effect? So we first of all, we explicitly specify the font size for our inputs. Font size is not inherited from the parent container, so we specify here that we want font size to be 40 pixels on the parent container, but it's not inherited. We need to specify it explicitly. Then we do text align to the right, because we are working with a numerical input. Then, in order to remove those ugly buttons, well, it's browser specific. Since I'm working with Chrome at the moment, I have to specify these WebKit properties. Then I specify the width of inputs. I use this thing here, which is called CH. It stands for character. I say that for the top row of inputs, I want the width to be 3 characters, and for the bottom row inputs, I have the width to be 2 characters. So here 3 characters and 2 characters, and observe how nice it looks. If you were to use some pixels or other unit of measurement, it would be harder to achieve this result. The next step, we are starting to work with JavaScript. So we add script into our program, into our HTML page, excuse me. And the most interesting part here is that we are getting access to the elements, HTML elements that we created, and we assigned certain classes to them. For example, this input here, it has class padding, and we call this function query selector, and we say that we want to get access to this element by its class. This dot here specifies the class, and padding is the class of the name, and we store this the reference to this HTML element. We save it into this variable padding input. And yes, I use the var keyword. There are good technical reasons for me using these var variables, but you can use const or let, whatever you prefer. Okay, the next step. We need to add event listeners. In the previous step, if I make changes to the input, nothing happens. So nothing happens. But in this step, we actually start listening to the user input, and when user presses up or down arrows, when the focus is inside inputs, and the user interacts with these inputs, we capture those events, and we start making changes to the preview of our boxes. Let's see how we achieve this result. The most interesting part here is this function, add event listener. This function takes 2 arguments. The first argument, the name of the event that we want to listen to. We want to listen to the input event. And the second argument is the handler function that is going to be called every time this event occurs. So event listeners in this case will contain two statements, one for each of the example boxes. So we take the value of the input. So every input element has this value property. It corresponds to the value attribute. So there is a direct connection between this value attribute and this value property. We take the value, the current value of the input, and we specify the unit of measurement that we want to use. We want to use pixels. And we assign this value to the inline style property. We use inline style properties to override the values that are specified in our style tag. So we specified certain values in our style tag. For example, width and height of a box, we set it to 300 pixels. But when we use inline styles here, we redefine we basically redefine the values that were specified in the style tag. Okay, the next step, we add this size indicator. So size indicator helps us to look at the values of at the dimensions of the containers inside our HTML page from the perspective of the browser. So how the browser sees those elements. So how do we achieve this effect? First of all, we need to adjust our HTML code. We need to add these two divs here, and we assign classes to them. Box size 300 by 300. This is the default dimension for this box. And then we specify some CSS properties. We make it font size a bit larger than the default font size. Default font size 40 pixels. We make it 60 pixels. And we set color to white. The next thing, we want to put these indicators, these labels, we want to put them in the middle of each of the boxes. And the best option that we have here is position absolute. Why position absolute? Why not display flags? Let me show you. The problem is that we have two child elements inside our boxes. If there were only one child element, then we would go with the same thing as we did here. So if you have one container, if you have a container that only has one child element, this is the way to go to center that child element. But if you have like several child elements like we have here, then we need to come up with alternative approach, and the best option that we can have here is position absolute. And we specify 50% from the top edge and 50% from the left edge. What edge are we talking about? We're talking about the edge of the parent container relative. So this computation is performed relative to the parent container, and we need to specify relative to what container, because if we don't specify this position relative explicitly, it is going to be a position to some other element to the body of the HTML page. We want to specify explicitly what container we want to use as our relative container. Okay, the next slide. We apply transformation, because if we just move our labels with position absolute, then they will end up here, because all computations are performed to this point the top left corner of each box. And this is a general rule in CSS and in SVG, in many other technologies, that we compute the position of elements relative to the top left corner of the element. And this is exactly what's happening here. So we actually positioned these labels in the middle of the box, but the middle is somewhere here. We need to apply a transformation, and we need to so this is the middle of our label, vertically and horizontally. So it's 50% here, 50% vertically, 50% horizontally. How do we achieve this result? We achieve this with transform translate, and we use negative values here because if we use positive values, we go from left to right, from top to bottom, but here we have to go in the opposite direction. Okay, the next step, which is actually the last step, let's see what we have in the previous step, what problem we have. These values, they don't update. So we make changes to our boxes, but the values do not update. We want to somehow catch these events and update our values, and like this. So how do we achieve this? We need to, first of all, we need to get access to our HTML element that we created here, box size. Again, these box sizes, I'm talking about these box sizes here. We get access to them programmatically. We save them in the corresponding variables. And then we define a function, update display. The most interesting part here is this function call, get bounding client rect. So we get the values. So what is this bounding client rect? This is an object that contains the width, height, and the position of the element. We are interested in its width and height. And this is a computed width and height according to the box sizing property that we specified earlier. And we set values. Also, please notice that when we work with input element, we use value property. When we work with other elements such as divs, we use text content. So if you have some text and you want to put this text inside the HTML element, or you want to extract this text from an HTML element, you generally use text content, except for inputs where you would use value. And we use this string literal here with backticks and this dollar sign and pair of curly braces. We specify the width and height. And we call this function in each of the event listeners here. So whenever the user changes the values for width, height, padding, border, or margin, we call this function update display. And this is the final version of our widget. We can play around with it, and we can observe how these changes manifest themselves. And I think this is the best way to learn tricky concepts like this one, is to first learn some theory. There are a lot of, if we're talking about some common subjects, you can find basic information on the internet, and then try to build, to apply your knowledge and build some little program like this. So that's it for this video. Leave your comments, leave your ideas, what you think about your video in the comments. and I hope to see you soon in the next video.